In our headlines on this Tuesday, May 26th, here in South Korea, U.S. President Donald Trump says he'll sign, quote, a great deal with Iran or there will be no deal at all, while Iran acknowledges tangible advances in peace talks but insists a deal is not, quote, imminent. Meanwhile, prospects of peace in the Middle East sent oil prices tumbling, which in turn pushed up the South Korean stock market past the 8,000 mark as foreign investors sought semiconductors. And President Lee Jae-myung calls for an active fiscal policy in the second half of this year in preparation for crucial changes once the conflict in the Middle East comes to an end. We begin with the latest out of the Trump administration with regard to its standoff with Tehran. Now, there have been reports of fresh U.S. strikes in southern Iran just hours after Donald Trump claimed peace talks were proceeding, quote, nicely. Our Cho Young-eun starts us off.
U.S. Central Command said Monday that U.S. forces carried out self-defense strikes in southern Iran, targeting missile launch sites and Iranian boats allegedly attempting to lay mines during the ongoing ceasefire. Explosions were reported in the port city of Bandar Abbas, with Iranian media saying the situation is under control. Earlier Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump said negotiations with Iran toward a deal to end the war were proceeding nicely, but warned that if diplomacy fails, U.S. attacks would resume on a scale bigger and stronger than ever before. Writing on Truth Social, Trump said the deal with Iran would either be a great and meaningful one or there will be no deal. His remarks come amid criticism from both Democrats and some Republicans who worry a deal could ease pressure on Tehran while leaving Iran's nuclear program intact. On the same day, Trump insisted that Iran's enriched uranium stockpile must either be handed over to the United States or destroyed under the oversight of the International Atomic Energy Agency. A senior U.S. official said Iran had agreed in principle to dispose of the highly enriched uranium, with details of the mechanism still being discussed. Trump also called for countries including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan, and Turkey to join the Abraham Accords as part of broader efforts tied to negotiations with Iran. He said he spoke with leaders from those countries, including the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, which already signed the normalization agreements with Israel. Trump said on social media that those nations will welcome Iran into the accords once a deal to end the conflict is reached. The comments follow an Axios report from Saturday, which said that Washington and Tehran are discussing a framework agreement that could include extending a ceasefire for 60 days, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, and continuing talks over Iran's nuclear program. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
Iran, for its part, has acknowledged tangible advances in peace talks with the U.S., but dismissed talk about a deal being, quote, imminent. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Iran says progress has been made in talks with the United States aimed at ending the 3-month conflict in the Persian Gulf, but cautioned that a final agreement is not yet close. Speaking at a weekly briefing on Monday, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghaei said negotiators had reached conclusions on many issues, but stressed that this did not mean a deal was imminent.
It is true that we have reached a conclusion regarding a large part of the topics under discussion, but to say that this means the signing of an agreement is imminent, no one can make such a claim.
He added that current discussions are focused primarily on ending the war and lifting the U.S. naval blockade around the Strait of Hormuz, rather than on Iran's nuclear program. According to Baghaei, a proposed 14-point memorandum of understanding would center on restoring safe passage through the strategic waterway in exchange for Iranian guarantees on maritime security. However, he also criticized the shifting positions by U.S. officials, saying they have complicated efforts to reach an agreement. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington would continue to give diplomacy every opportunity before considering what he called alternatives. His comments followed President Donald Trump's announcement that he had instructed American negotiators not to rush into a deal with Tehran. Despite some progress in peace talks, the two sides remain divided over several key issues, including Iran's nuclear ambitions, Tehran's demands for sanctions relief, and access to billions of dollars in frozen oil revenues overseas, as well as the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah group in Lebanon. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin has warned foreign nationals and diplomats to leave the Ukrainian capital city as soon as possible, as it pledges to launch a series of systematic strikes against Kyiv. Our Cha Yun-kyung has more.
Russia warned on Monday local time that it will carry out deadly, large-scale airstrikes against Ukraine, days after attacks on the Ukrainian capital. Russia's foreign ministry said in a statement that decision-making centers, command posts, and drone manufacturing facilities will be the target of the new strikes in response to the Ukrainian attack on Friday local time. According to Ukrainian authorities, Russia carried out strikes on Saturday night, killing 4 and injuring more than 90 people in Kyiv. Moscow has called for foreign nationals and diplomats to leave Kyiv as soon as possible. During a phone call on Monday local time, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov urged U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio to evacuate U.S. staff from its embassy in Kyiv. Russia has been in retaliation after accusing Ukraine of carrying out a deadly attack on a student dormitory in an occupied part of eastern Ukraine on Friday. According to Russian authorities, at least 16 people were killed and 42 were injured in the town of Starobilsk in the Luhansk region. In return, Ukraine's defense forces struck oil refineries in Russia's Bryansk region in return on Monday night. Ukraine has constantly targeted oil depots in Russia by using drones, causing operations to stop at facilities that account for roughly 25% of domestic gasoline production. Cha Yun-kyung, Arirang News.
Here on the Korean peninsula, North Korea launched short-range ballistic missiles toward the West Sea earlier on this Tuesday afternoon. Now, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says the missiles were detected at around 1 p.m. originating from North Korea's Cheongju area in Pyeongbuk-do province and flew some 80 kilometers. Intelligence officials here and their U.S. counterparts shared relevant information and tracked related movements from the early stages of the launch, while exchanging data with neighboring Japan as well. The latest launch marks North Korea's first ballistic missile provocation in 37 days and its 8th ballistic missile launch this year. South Korea has made public its first formal nuclear-powered submarine plan based on non-proliferation principles. The plan was released by the Defense Ministry on this Tuesday, with the envisioned submarines targeted for launch in the mid-2030s and deployment in the late 2030s. The submarines will use low-enriched uranium reactors, be built domestically, and remain under U.S. coordination and IAEA safeguards. President Lee Jae-myung, for his part, says the nuclear-powered submarines will symbolize South Korea's resolve to resume responsibility for peace and security on the Korean peninsula. Defense officials from Seoul and Washington today begin their joint search for the remains of American soldiers who lost their lives during the Korean War. The month-long endeavor covers 6 areas, including Hongcheon in Gangwon-do province and Yangpyeong in Gyeonggi-do province, where the U.S. 2nd Infantry Division suffered significant losses. Both teams have pledged close coordination to ensure the success of the joint investigation. The local bourse has reclaimed the 8,000 mark as investors bet big on chips amid a global tech rally and a drop in oil prices on prospects of peace in the Middle East. Our Park Chun-an covers Tuesday's rally.
Korea's benchmark KOSPI has reclaimed the 8,000 mark, closing at an all-time high of 8,047 points on Tuesday. The rally was largely driven by the return of foreign investors. Their purchases were heavily concentrated in the semiconductor sector. As a result, the nation's tech giants saw historic milestones, with Samsung Electronics crossing the 300,000 won mark at one point and SK Hynix surpassing 2 million won. This surge reflects broader global momentum fueled by the artificial intelligence boom, which has led to high returns for investors worldwide. Another major factor lifting investor sentiment is the sharp drop in international oil prices. With growing expectations of a U.S.-Iran ceasefire agreement, U.S. crude futures plunged over 6% to around $90 a barrel, while Brent crude fell below $100 for the first time since late April. Because Korea relies heavily on energy imports, the stock market is particularly sensitive to these stabilizing oil prices. However, market analysts warn of potential short-term volatility.
Many investors remain concerned about whether semiconductor stocks can continue rising, given the sector's history of sharp earnings volatility. However, U.S. big tech companies driving demand for chips are still posting very strong earnings, which continue to support the market. Valuations are certainly stretched compared to past levels, so there might be some pressure. But for now, there do not appear to be many clear warning signs pointing to an immediate reversal.
Furthermore, despite hopes for peace, experts remain cautious due to high interest rates. As U.S. big tech firms have been issuing corporate bonds to finance massive data center investments, elevated borrowing costs could indirectly affect semiconductor companies' earnings as well. In particular, uncertainty surrounding the U.S. Federal Reserve's policy path, especially following the appointment of new Fed Chair Kevin Warsh, could weigh on market sentiment going forward. Park Junan, Arirang News.
In other news, President Lee Jae-myung has highlighted the importance of pursuing an active fiscal policy in the second half of this year to allow for economic stability ahead of a tangible growth strategy. Our correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Deploying economic measures is necessary to preemptively address developments that will unfold after the war ends in the Middle East. This was according to President Lee Jae-myung at Tuesday's cabinet meeting, which also serves as an emergency economic meeting, as the South Korean government draws up its economic strategy for the second half of 2026.
올해가 잠재 성장률 반등의 원년이 되도록 재정의 적극적 역할을 바탕으로 치밀하고 속도감 있는 정책 대응을 당부드립니다.
He also called for tightening belts to conserve funds so they can be used in areas deemed essential.
불효불급한 재정 지출은 과감하게 줄여야 합니다. 국민이 맡긴 세금과 권력을 오로지 국민만을 위해서 제대로 잘 사용하는 것이 바로 우리의 책임입니다.
Officials noted that the country's nominal growth rate is expected to reach nearly 10% this year, as they say the local economy grew and recovered fast despite the prolonged Middle East conflict.
As growth improves, tax revenue will increase, and these are likely to push up prices and interest rates. We will try to minimize those concerns as we devise a growth strategy plan fit for the new era.
On top of imminent tasks to tamp down higher prices, the authorities plan to embark on structural reform in the public, financial, and labor sectors.
지속적으로 우상향할 수 있게 하는 게 정말로 중요한 것 같아요. 그러려면 우리 사회의 모든 분야를 다 바꿔야 됩니다.
Officials call the timing a golden hour for an economic rebound. It also coincides with the start of President Lee's second year in office, after taking the oath of office last June. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
On the entertainment front, K-pop sensation BTS has claimed yet again the top prize at the American Music Awards. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo covers this feat and more.
Members looked stunned while some hugged each other with joy. The reactions came as BTS was announced the winner of the top honor, Artist of the Year, at the 2026 American Music Awards held in Las Vegas on Monday local time. It marked the group's second win in the category following its historic victory in 2021, when BTS became the first Asian act to receive the award, before members began their mandatory military service.
Thank you. It's an honor to have this precious award once again after everybody done their military service. Like the legendary Busta Rhymes said, it's a fan-voted award, so Our biggest thanks and gratitude, as always, goes to the armies all over the world.
The group beat out 9 other nominees, including Bad Bunny and Taylor Swift, to claim the award. BTS at the AMAs also picked up 2 additional trophies: Song of the Summer for Swim, the lead track from its latest album Arirang, and Best Male K-pop Artist, sweeping all 3 categories in which the group was nominated. While AMA is considered one of the 3 major US music awards alongside the Grammys and Billboard Music Awards, the AMAs are widely seen as a stronger reflection of public popularity, as winners are determined through fan votes after nominees are selected over factors including streaming numbers and album sales. With BTS sweeping awards at the AMAs just 2 months after the album's release, attention is also drawn to whether BTS will be able to win a trophy at the upcoming Grammys next February. BTS hasn't won a Grammy so far. Also at the ceremony, K-pop Demon Hunters took home 4 trophies, including Song of the Year for Golden from its soundtrack and Best Soundtrack. Singer-songwriter EJ thanked fans for helping the song in the film gain tremendous support. In addition, Korea-U.S. collaborative K-pop group KATSEYE also emerged as another standout winner, earning 3 awards, including New Artist of the Year. The members also expressed gratitude toward BTS for helping expand global interest in their genre. KATSEYE also performed its latest track release, Pinky Up. With multiple K-pop acts taking home major honors at this year's AMAs, expectations are growing for the genre to further expand its global dominance. 박건우, Arirang News.
And on the local silver screen, the K-production Kunche, also known as Colony in English, attracted over 2 million moviegoers as of this past Monday, just 5 days following its release last Thursday. This achievement is a new box office milestone and beats that of the blockbuster The King's Warden that surpassed the 2 million mark on day 12 following its release. Kunche, or Colony, depicts a story of survivors trapped inside a sealed building after a mysterious infection outbreak. And speaking about an outbreak, the scale and speed of the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo are sounding alarm bells across health organizations worldwide. Our Yun-jin reports.
World Health Organization Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus has said that the pace Ebola is spreading is outpacing containment efforts. According to authorities from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, cumulative confirmed cases have risen to 101, and the cumulative suspected cases to 930. Suspected Ebola deaths have been tallied at 221. Centered in the Ituri province in eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, Ebola has spread to 11 areas, including North and South Kivu provinces. Neighboring Uganda reported 2 new cases on Monday, both health workers, bringing its total confirmed cases to 7. Dr. Ghebreyesus also said on Monday during a virtual ministerial briefing that responders are playing catch-up after a weeks-long detection delay and warned the outbreak is likely to get worse before it gets better. He plans to travel to the epicenter of the virus in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Tuesday. Declared a public health emergency of international concern by the WHO, this is Congo's 17th Ebola outbreak. However, the specific Budibugyo species of Ebola that is spreading is rare, with no vaccines or medications, making it harder to treat. The WHO said last week it could take up to 9 months for a vaccine. Amid efforts to isolate patients and trace transmission routes, local police in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo on Sunday had to fire shots in the air after angry crowds demanded they reclaim the bodies of loved ones who died from the virus. Meanwhile, the WHO and the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have unveiled a 6-month Ebola response plan. With a $319 million budget, the plan covers all 55 African Union member states. $265 million is allocated for outbreak response in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda, while $54 million will go towards preparedness efforts in 10 high-risk African countries. Yun-jin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. In Japan, 26 people at a Tokyo mall developed throat pain and felt unwell after a person allegedly sprayed an unknown substance. Dozens of emergency vehicles and responders in hazmat suits were deployed to the Ginza 6 shopping complex on Monday, and surrounding roads were temporarily closed. 19 of those affected were taken to hospital. All were conscious with their symptoms described as mild. Police found traces of what appeared to be pepper spray on a nearby wall. Authorities said they are searching for a man seen on security footage spraying something inside the mall before fleeing the scene. The suspect has not been identified, and an investigation is underway. In Angola, a landslide and an illegal gold mine has killed at least 28 people. Local authorities said the landslide on Saturday at the mine in Bengo province was one of Angola's deadliest mining disasters. All victims were aged between 16 and 35 years old. 13 of the dead were from the same family. 4 people were rescued. Provincial authorities estimate around 7,000 illegal miners are currently operating in Bengo province alone. Illegal gold mining has surged in Angola as falling diamond prices have pushed workers toward gold and other metals. Britain recorded its hottest ever day in the month of May on Monday. Temperatures at Kew Gardens in London reached 34.8 degrees Celsius. The United Kingdom's National Weather and Climate Service said the reading broke the previous May record of 32.8 degrees set in both 1922 and 1944. It was also the hottest public holiday on record since Met Office records began in 1884. Wales also recorded its hottest day in May at 32.2 degrees. Ahead of the heat wave, the UK government issued an amber heat alert for large parts of England. Weather forecasters say Tuesday could see temperatures as high as 35 degrees. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
Heavy rain is sweeping across the country today. It'll be especially intense across southern regions and Jeju Island. In particular, the south coast and mountainous areas of Jeju Island could see downpours of around 50 millimeters per hour at times. A heavy rain warning remains in effect for the mountainous areas of Jeju Island, where more than 250 millimeters is expected through tomorrow. The south coast could receive over 150, while parts of the central regions may receive up to 60 millimeters. Also, strong winds will accompany the rain. Mountainous areas of Jeju Island are currently under a strong wind advisory and could see wind gusts exceeding 25 meters per second through early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's Seoul will start the day at 21 degrees, Chuncheon at 18 degrees, Daegu at 19 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 25 degrees, Daegu at 22 degrees, Gwangju at 28 degrees. Once the rain clears, sunny skies will be back, and temperatures will gradually climb again. But with large day-to-night temperature swings of around 15 degrees, make sure to dress accordingly.
Those are the headlines at the SAR here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us and thank you for now.